Morbid Facts, Part 181. While preparing for his role as Steve Jobs in the movie Jobs, Ashton Kutcher followed Steve's fruitarian diet but ended up in the hospital with pancreatic issues. Perhaps it's no coincidence that Steve Jobs himself died of pancreatic cancer. Here's an x-ray of Robbie Knievel's spine and an actual photograph of the metal device after he passed away last year. Robbie broke 20 bones throughout his daredevil career, but this foils in comparison to his father Evel Knievel, who fractured his bones an astounding 433 times. Here's a clip of Shonda Vander vomiting in court after being shown photos of her emaciated, disabled son, who she starved and murdered. The Michigan woman was convicted of first-degree murder and child abuse. In 2006, after a man shot 10 Amish children and took his own life, the Amish went to the man's family to offer them support. They also set up a charity fund for his family, and during the shooter's funeral, they surrounded the family to shield them from the media. Morbid Facts, Part 532. Cult leader Amy Carlson, aka Mother God, convinced her followers that she was God, a 19 billion-year-old being, and that she could heal people from cancer with the power of love. Amy claimed she had reincarnated 534 times, with her past lives including Cleopatra, Jesus Christ, Harriet Tubman, and Marilyn Monroe. But Amy's health began to rapidly decline after she herself was reportedly diagnosed with cancer in 2020. She was eventually paralyzed from the neck down and begged her members to take her to the hospital, but they refused, and she ended up dying in April of 2021 at the age of 46. When police were alerted, they found her mummified corpse in a state of decay that suggested she'd been dead for several weeks. It was stuffed in a sleeping bag wrapped with Christmas lights, with the face covered in glitter and both eyes removed. Authorities stated it was a makeshift shrine and ended up charging 7 members of the group with desecration of a corpse. Morbid Facts, Part 654. In the months leading up to his death, actor and comedian Chris Farley was visibly deteriorating, sweating profusely, coughing up blood, and often unable to walk without assistance. His appearances on SNL and late-night shows became increasingly erratic as producers began to fear he might die right on set. On December 18, 1997, he was found face down in his Chicago apartment wearing only a shirt after several days of binging on alcohol and hard drugs. The last person to see him alive was a sex worker he had hired named Heidi Hauser. As she was leaving, Farley reportedly followed her down the hall while begging her, "Don't leave me, please don't leave me," which were likely his final words. The cause of death was a speedball overdose, a lethal mix of cocaine and morphine. Eerily, Farley idolized John Belushi and always said he wanted to be just like him, even saying in sketches, "I'll probably go out like Belushi." Both comedians died of speedball overdoses at the young age of 33. Artifact Porn, Part 33. Built during the reign of King Louis XVI in 1774, the Writing Boy was the first automatic android ever created. It was hand-built by Swiss watchmaker Pierre-Jacques Dreux and was designed to mimic the act of someone writing with incredible precision. A milestone in the history of robotics and engineering, the android is comprised of 6,000 moving parts that took more than 20 months to put together. The Sidarium of St. Veronica is an engraving made by French artist Claude Milan in 1649. It was created from a single spiraling, unbroken line that starts at the tip of Jesus' nose. Discovered in 1972, this 8-inch long deuce was dropped by a Viking around the 8th century. Weighing in at just under 5 corics, it's the largest fossilized human turd ever found and has provided valuable insights into the dietary practices of ancient Vikings. In 2013, an ancient tree at an archaeological site in Romania was uprooted during a thunderstorm. Beneath the tree, the site's caretaker discovered an ancient bronze matrix that was used as a mold to craft jewelry for the Dacian civilization over 2,000 years ago. Just last year, Irish farmer Michael Boyle found this 50-pound chunk of bog butter on his property after digging up something that reeked of cheese. Ancient farmers would often bury these large chunks of animal fat in bogs for preservation. Despite it dating all the way back to the Bronze Age, Boyle says it still tastes like butter. Morbid Facts, Part 677. Pamela Anderson contracted hepatitis C in the 90s after sharing a tattoo needle with her husband Tommy Lee, who never told her he had the deadly virus. Doctors warned her it could kill her within 10 years, and the virus slowly attacked her liver, while she suffered from chronic fatigue, weakness, and bouts of depression. At her lowest, she described feeling like her body was rotting from the inside, as the disease forced her out of the spotlight and into isolation. For over a decade, she lived with the fear of cancer or liver failure, until she was finally cured in 2015 by a breakthrough antiviral treatment. In 2004, 7-year-old Tyler Moon became a walking miracle after a horrific quad crash left both he and his father critically injured in the Australian bush. Despite suffering 2 collapsed lungs filling with blood, 7 broken ribs, and a shattered arm, the boy staggered for nearly a kilometer through dense forest to reach help. When he finally reached his mother's house, he managed to say, "Dad said you should call an ambulance," before collapsing on the ground. Doctors said it was a miracle that Tyler survived at all, let alone saved someone else's life in the process. These are the most dangerous people in the world who were released from prison and are currently free. In the mid-2000s, a serial child molester living in Thailand posted various pictures of himself online depicting his abuse to young boys. But the man used an editing app to swirl his face, coining him the notorious nickname Swirlface. In 2007, Interpol managed to unswirl his face and reveal his true identity. Christopher Paul Neal was later arrested for the essaying of at least 12 young boys. He was released from prison in 2017 and now lives in Vancouver. In 1981, Japanese college student Issei Sagawa murdered the female student he was studying with, and then spent the next 2 days consuming her flesh to absorb her health and beauty, characteristics which he felt he lacked. A French court soon found him legally insane and deported him to Japan, where Sagawa avoided serving any jail time due to a legal technicality. Despite the gruesome details of the murder and his lack of remorse, Sagawa became somewhat of a celebrity and gave interviews in the years following his release. To this day, he remains free and even says he wants to taste human flesh again before he dies. Along with her boyfriend Paul, Karla Homolka raped and murdered at least 3 young girls, including her own little sister, Tammy. She allegedly gave Paul her 15-year-old sister's virginity as a Christmas gift upon drugging her with tranquilizers. After Tammy choked on her own vomit and died, Karla put on her deceased sister's clothes and proceeded to have intercourse with Paul on the girl's bed. When their crimes were finally uncovered, police found videotapes of the couple performing heinous acts on their young victims. But Karla managed to negotiate a plea deal known as the Deal with the Devil in exchange for her testimony against Paul. He's now spending life in prison while Karla is happily remarried with children. Considered by many to be the most prolific serial killer and rapist in recorded history, Pedro Lopez raped and killed over 300 young girls throughout several South American countries in the 70s. He was found guilty on 110 counts of murder and sentenced to 16 years in prison, Ecuador's highest form of punishment. After later being held in a psychiatric hospital, he was released on bail in 1998 and has remained missing ever since. He's likely still committing horrible atrocities to this day, as his current whereabouts are unknown. Nicknamed the Merchant of Death, Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout rose to power after the fall of the Soviet Union in the early 90s. Using his fleet of 60 cargo planes, the arms he's brokered have helped fuel conflicts in countries including Afghanistan, Angola, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Somalia, Liberia, Rwanda, Sudan, and Sierra Leone. Willing to sell guns to anyone who wanted them, Bout has supplied both sides of civil wars and is said to be responsible for the deaths of tens of millions of people. He was arrested in 2008 during a sting operation, where he was caught selling surface-to-air missiles that would have been used to kill American troops. But Viktor Bout is now free and back in Russia thanks to a prisoner swap for WNBA player Brittany Griner, who was arrested a few years ago after trying to bring a THC cartridge on a Russian airplane. Disturbing Fan Theories, Part 3. There's a very popular urban legend that claims Walt Disney had his head cryogenically frozen immediately after he died, with the hope that he could be revived in the future when technology makes it possible. This was done because Walt Disney's brain and creative ideas were far too valuable to let die. His head is rumored to be hidden underneath Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean ride or Cinderella's castle. Believers in this theory point to Disney on Ice in the movie Frozen as deliberate attempts by the Disney company to cover up people searching about Walt's frozen head. Over the years, many fans have questioned why Tarzan wears a loincloth even though he was raised by gorillas and should therefore have no concept of clothing. According to one popular theory, it's because he's embarrassed about his massive hammer. Humans are known to have proportionally much longer members than other species of apes, likely as an adaptation from walking upright. Meanwhile, gorilla schlongs can only reach about 2.5 inches at their longest, so Tarzan probably started wearing the loincloth after being viciously bullied for his oversized upon reaching puberty. Here are some morbidly wholesome facts about Johnny Depp. In 2007, Johnny Depp's daughter Lily Rose was hospitalized at age 7 after contracting a severe E. coli infection that resulted in kidney failure. She was in a children's hospital for 9 days and doctors weren't sure if she'd make it through. Once she recovered, in order to thank the hospital for taking care of her, Johnny dressed up as Jack Sparrow and read stories for all the kids at the hospital. Today, Johnny always travels with his Jack Sparrow costume so he can randomly visit children's hospitals while dressed in character. While filming for Sleepy Hollow, Johnny became very close with his co-star, a one-eyed horse named Goldeneye. When he heard the horse was gonna be euthanized after filming, Johnny didn't hesitate to adopt the horse himself. When the Imaginarium of Dr. Pistorius was only a third of the way through filming, lead actor Heath Ledger tragically passed away from a sleeping pill overdose. Along with Jude Law and Colin Farrell, Johnny Depp filled in for Heath Ledger's role and donated his entire wage to Heath's 4-year-old daughter. Here are some morbid facts about your favorite stars from Nickelodeon. After losing 125 pounds as a teenager, Josh Peck turned to drugs and alcohol as his new vices. He recently revealed that he was high on a buffet of drugs including cocaine and prescription pills while filming seasons 3 and 4 of Drake and Josh. But Peck soon realized he developed a reputation in Hollywood for being unstable and erratic and has remained sober since 2008. When Brian Peck was on trial for sexually abusing Drake Bell in 2003, there were 41 letters written to the judge by friends, family, and colleagues who were defending Peck's character. Some claim that Peck must have been facing major temptation or had been pressured and pushed beyond belief to have committed any of the abuse. Drake and Josh director Rich Correll and stage manager Beth Correll both allegedly wrote letters in Peck's defense, with Rich saying it would be his pleasure to work with Brian again. In 2016, a man who'd been continuously stalking Miranda Cosgrove apparently plotted to murder her. For 3 days, the stalker had been burying various weapons in Cosgrove's backyard, including knives and a rope. One day, he spent hours pacing around the area and eventually shot at a woman who looked like Miranda. The man then performed self-immolation before turning the gun on himself right in Cosgrove's yard. Miranda has stated that she still lives in the same home but refuses to stay there alone ever since that traumatic incident. Jeanette McCurdy has described the relationship she had with her mother Deborah as both emotionally and sexually abusive. When Jeanette was 3 years old, her mom was diagnosed with breast cancer and underwent multiple surgeries. As a result, Deborah would perform routine vaginal and breast exams on Jeanette and never allowed her to shower alone until she turned 17. McCurdy says that her mother was obsessed with making her a star and introduced her to a calorie restriction by age 11, leading to various eating disorders that Jeanette still struggles with, including anorexia and bulimia. McCurdy says that she refused to appear in the revival series of iCarly only because she didn't want to be reminded of her mother's abuse during the original show. In 2022, Jeanette released a book entitled I'm Glad My Mom Died 9 years after she passed away from breast cancer. After being a massive Nickelodeon star in the 90s and early 2000s since the age of 10, Amanda Bynes faced a public downfall after retiring from acting in 2009. She began raising eyebrows when she received a DUI upon crashing into a police cruiser in 2012. After being released, she was arrested several more times for DUIs, holding up traffic, and hit and runs until her license was finally suspended. In May of 2013, officers arrested Bynes once again for reckless endangerment, amid reports that she threw a bong out the window of her New York City apartment. A few months later, she was sent to a psychiatric hospital after starting a fire at the end of someone's driveway in California. Soon afterwards, Bynes announced that she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and conservatorship was granted to her parents. The 38-year-old now goes by the name Midge Gardiner and is completely unrecognizable.